Welcome back, everyone, to the Finding Elevation podcast. I'm Lisa Thompson, and today's guest is someone that I have personally worked with through multiple injuries, from a crazy tight big toe to a nagging shoulder injury. Today's guest is someone who's helped other Alpine Athletics athletes in Seattle also to prevent injury and recover stronger, just move better, and generally stay on track for big goals. So I'm joined today by Brent George, who's a physical therapist with, so good to have you here. Brent has over 30 years of experience in the physical therapy realm. He also co-owns G4 Athlete in Seattle and has worked with many really impressive athletes. So I'm just going to name a few of them. The Seahawks in Seattle, the Sounders, the Storm, the Reign. I think those are pretty much all of them. The Mariners, as well as other Olympic, collegiate, and high school athletes across the country. And as if that wasn't enough, I don't know how you have time to do this, Brent, but he also teaches at the University of Puget Sound's Doctor of Physical Therapy program and consults with shoe brands on biomechanical design. So simply put, when it comes to movement and performance and longevity, Brent knows his stuff and he's someone that I trust. And so in this episode, we're going to take most of the time to answer real questions that have been submitted by the Alpine Athletics community. So we'll talk about how to tell the difference between normal soreness and an actual injury. We'll talk about how to handle long-standing muscle imbalances, especially after surgeries, and what tight really means and what to do about that, particularly if it's your hips that are tight. And I've lately been working a lot and thinking about mobility. So we'll talk about how to protect your joints, especially as you age. So welcome, Brent. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm pumped. This is great.
We're going to have a lot of fun, I can tell.
Yes.
Before we get into the questions, I love to know how people landed where they are. So how is it that you ended up in the physical therapy realm, and how did you end up eventually owning your own clinic?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I was thinking all these grandiose ideas going into college, thinking I'm going to go to med school, and that's the track I was on, and biology major, and spending way too much time in the lab, and, what am I doing? And then I was making an attempt at playing small college football at the University of Puget Sound, and go Loggers. And hurt my back in the weight room trying to be dumb, and ended up herniating 2 discs in my lumbar spine.
Wow.
Non-surgical, but at the age of 19 and you can barely walk, it was kind of brutal. So the team physician sent me in for an MRI. Oh, yeah, you have herniated discs. So he said, well, let's try some physical therapy. And so he sent me to physical therapy, and my therapist at that time, I'll never forget it. She was very energetic and just really motivational in a way that I'm like, wow, this is kind of interesting, kind of working with an athlete, working through their injury. And so long and short, she got me back up on my feet, and I was like, this is kind of cool. I would love to kind of look into this. So I started volunteering, and more, one thing led to another. And then there was this amazing sports medicine clinic in Tacoma, and I started knocking on their door. And after a couple of months, they finally let me in to say, hey, okay, dude, you can come in here and start volunteering. Long and short, I ended up working there for 3 years. Ended up saying, yeah, you know what? Wow, University of Puget Sound actually has one of 3 of the physical therapy schools in the state of Washington. And University of Puget Sound, Eastern Washington, and UW. And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting.
You were already there as a student.
Yeah, I was already there. Really didn't even know that we had a PT school, and ended up in 2 years from then, from my injury, I applied and was lucky enough to get in. And there you go. So it was through a personal injury that led to me kind of thinking, hey, this would be an awesome opportunity to work with others, work with active people. And I was from Minnesota, and I have never left. So that injury kept me right here. And then lastly, I never really thought about, I'm going to go in to business for myself. But after 3 years of working at an awesome clinic in Kirkland, I was like, you know what? I want to do this on my own. And it's not like I want to do this on my own to go make a bunch of money. I want to do this on my own to treat people the way I want to be treated, and to really create an awesome environment for our therapists, for the people that we see, the people we work with. And so my wife and I embarked on a journey of opening a clinic back on my dad's birthday in February
Wow.
17th, 1997. We have been at it ever since. So a total of 33 years in the profession.
Wow, that's a lot.
So I don't know, that was a long-winded answer,
No,
but
it's curious to me that you were already going to school in a place that focused on what you ultimately wanted to study and become a professional at. That's just ironic how you were already there. It was right under your nose waiting for you.
no coincidences, right? I mean,
That's right.
when it's lined up the way it's supposed to line up, there it is, ready for you to go get it. And I didn't even know what was right under my nose. So very thankful, amazing. And so just to clarify, as far as the University of Puget Sound, and you had mentioned that I teach there, I have taught there a lot in giving back to that university as a clinical instructor, having students in our clinic, and then teaching a
Cool.
course on biomechanics and custom orthotics for several years. And then before COVID, they shut down bringing in any other outside sources, and they wanted to kind of do it all in-house. So it's been a while since I've taught there, but I spent a lot of time there trying to give back to the students, and it was
So important.
some time.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the first questions I had for you. I would love to know more about that work that you've done consulting with athletic shoe brands. And because as someone who's struggled with her feet, and I see a lot of athletes as well who really, it takes them a long time sometimes to figure out how to get the right shoe and the right orthotic. So, what do you see people doing wrong most often when it comes to choosing footwear as athletes, and how I imagine having the right shoe really goes a long way towards preventing not just performance, but also preventing injury?
Man, we could talk, Lisa. I get pumped about this because so shoes, yeah, and I've had opportunities to actually help with the design of some shoes on some athletes that
Cool.
you all know that I probably can't mention who they are as far as HIPAA. I don't want to get in trouble, but with some major brands, and so that's been fun. Anyway, that's a whole different deal. What's more
Yeah.
important is your feet are your foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Period. When we stand and we load, there are two foundations in our body, our pelvis and our feet. And our hips and our pelvis and our feet need to speak the same language. And if they're askew and they're off, well, then we're off. The job of the foot is to shock absorb, support, and propel. The shoe can enhance that, it can solidify that, but it can get in the way of that. Absolutely get in the way. So a lot of times patients will come in, athletes will come in and, I love these shoes. They're amazing. And sometimes it's because the shoe is letting them do what they want, meaning the compensation of their foot. It feels so good. It feels so cushioned. But what's happening is what their body is telling their brain and back, that shoe is letting their foot just dump in because that's what I do. And there are 500 reasons why that could be. Their foot structure, weak hip, a
Yeah.
ligament discrepancy, a jammed talus, so in English, a jammed ankle joint, a restricted big toe joint. Lisa, hello. Um, did I just blow HIPAA there? Okay, sorry.
I think I brought it up first, so that's
Okay,
okay.
don't find me. All right. So the shoe, if it's letting the foot do what it wants, and hence the knee and the hip,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's like, that's a perfect shoe, but biomechanically, it's absolutely a train wreck. We want a shoe, we want to pick a shoe so we fall down on kind of missing the link with that, is understanding the components of what a shoe should have. So a shoe should have, even if I have a really flexible foot or a rigid foot, if the shoe has good torsional stability, you want that. Because no matter what you're doing, if you're doing a lateral sport or a forward sport or a jumping sport, when the foot hits the ground, it's going to react to ground reaction. It's going to succumb to any abnormal changes in the surface of of what
Mm-hmm.
you're on. So you got to have good torsional stability. Shoes that you can wring out, like I say, like a wash rag. That is a recipe for all kinds of disasters. It's like, no, but that's good for the foot. That trains it. Well, it depends on what you're doing. If you're walking around Green Lake, maybe we're okay.
Right.
But if we're doing something dynamic, that's not okay. And that's job security for me, right? So keep doing it. No. So torsional stability, another one. the heel counter. So right where your heel sits, right where the shoe meets the sole, you want that to be really firm. If it's soft, when that foot hits the ground and that rear foot starts to succumb to ground reaction force and starts to roll, if that's real soft, you get more roll, you get more overload, you get more pronation, or in some cases, more supination of the foot rolling out. So that stresses the ankle, that
Mm-hmm.
stresses the knee, that stresses the hip. And then lastly, the flex point. So where the shoe flexes longitudinally, so does it flex right at the toe? Yeah, okay. Is it hyperflexible? If it's hyperflexible, that's a great way to sprain your big toe. That's a great way to give yourself plantar fasciitis. That's a great way to lose power and push off when you're running because ground reaction force, if that's hyperflexing, you're losing power into the ground versus if you have more of a rocker, that's helping to propel you up onto your toes and get you moving in the forward plane, not losing motion, wasted motion into pronation or sometimes supination. So, in essence, the squeeze test, the twist test, and the flex test, you want those all to be solid. So, where we fall down is shoes that are hyper flexible, hyper mobile in their structure, and too lightweight. And I'm not going to poo poo certain
Yeah, yeah,
shoe
yeah.
companies, but there are some out there that I'm like, don't get those. I see them around a lot right now because they're
Yep.
kind of fashionable and they're kind of a thing right now. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I just see people out there doing stuff and their feet are just splayed out because the shoe is so unstable. And I'm like, okay. So don't take me to the mall. Don't take me around Green Lake because
Because you want to pick apart everyone's
I
footwear.
know. My wife's like, will you just stop
Just
it?
enjoy.
Just zip it. You're just a freak. Just, you can't let it go.
So, as you're describing all those tests of a particular pair of shoe, I'm thinking about mountaineering boots. If you aren't familiar, they're a lot like ski boots, right? Very, very stiff sole, sometimes a steel shank. I think we've gotten away from steel necessarily, but
Hmm.
still a very stiff shank, very high ankle support without a lot of flexion. So it sounds like those are good for, not that we're going to wear them around Green Lake,
Hmm.
but those are the good kind of boots to wear or shoes to wear for stability.
You know your world and you know the environments that you get into. You have got to have that stability, something when that foot loads, you know where it is,
Mm-hmm.
you know where it's going, you know it's going to stay underneath you, and you, excuse me, have a platform to load onto. It's anything of the sort. We have instability. You can't have that out there in your world, right? But
Yeah.
same thing with running. We're exerting up to 8 times body weight through impact. So ground reaction force. It's all about mitigating ground reaction force. That's all about stability and that's all about preventing or mitigating injury at the end of the day.
Fascinating. Now I have to go shoe shopping. Thanks,
Yeah,
Brent.
I know. Hey, you just put me on Zoom and I'll say,
We'll do it together.
all right.
Okay.
Because I'll go into shoes, and I'm sitting there twisting shoes, and the shoe sale, can I help you? And I'm sitting here torquing on their shoes. They're like, what are you doing?
This
I'm like,
guy out of here.
sorry. It's a disease. I'm sorry.
Fascinating. I think I mostly focus on comfort when I buy a running shoe
Yep.
and not on how the shoe is constructed to support not only what I'm expecting to do in the shoe, but my particular like structure, skeletal
Yeah.
structure.
So, Lisa, the 3 F's: fit,
Mm-hmm.
feel, and function. You're talking fit. Yeah. How does it fit? A lot of times we're fitting our shoes too small. So fit, feel. Oh man. And I always tell my athletes, my patients, hey, when you have that shoe on, how does it feel? Does it feel like it's hugging your foot? How does the ride feel? Does it feel
Yeah.
like it's helping you propel? Does it feel like it's guiding your foot in a nice neutral fashion? Do you feel squirmy in your shoe? Do you feel like you're pistoning in your shoe? Do you have a nice solid feel underneath you that fits well, that feels good? And then functionally, that's where I'll take a look and say, bingo, we've got great alignment, good deceleration of motion, good push off mechanics, which translates into good mechanics at the knee and the hip and up into the spine
Yeah.
and even to the carriage of the shoulders sometimes too.
Wow. Fascinating. I love how everything's connected.
It is.
Okay, so our first question from an athlete How do you trace a pain or injury to its root cause? I love this question because every time I chat with you, I realize how connected everything is. And what signs or assessments help you to pinpoint whether it's compensation from another area or the primary problem itself?
Wow, that's my day every day. Hopefully it is, right? When the root cause, if we can find the root cause in things, sometimes we know, hey, I wiped out, I tore my rotator cuff, that's why I'm here. But sometimes it's like, hey, I'm having this shoulder pain and it hurts when I move, but I also have this weird kind of shoulder pain just at rest. Huh, that's interesting. Okay. So what's going on here? So let's say someone, and this happens more than not, where someone comes in to see us at G4 Athlete, and they haven't seen a doctor, which
Right.
we can do in the state of Washington, access
Right.
without referral. So I can see you, Lisa, without seeing a doctor. And we start picking that apart. All of a sudden, I start kind of examining you. And every time you kind of move your head one way, you get this zinger into your shoulder. Huh. But also, when you move your arm in a
Yep.
certain way, ow, I hurt here. Nope, not here, but ow, I hurt here. And then you do strength tests and you look at the joint itself and you start picking that apart. And the more you pick it apart, you start seeing tests that are positive for shoulder strain, stress, weakness, instability. But you also then saw something associated when I'm not moving my shoulder and I'm moving my neck and I move in certain planes and I get this
Yeah.
zinger of a pain down into my shoulder. Maybe I have two things going on, or maybe I have a certain weakness in my shoulder that's coming from my neck, from an impinged segment or a herniated disc that's creating issues as far as the neurologic feed here for firing that rotator cuff or inhibiting it. And so I have pain in my shoulder. It seems like a shoulder thing, but the cause is coming from my cervical spine. How do you know that?
Right.
It's hard to discern that, the layperson out there. And please, Dr. Google,
Don't try.
just consider your sources. I'm getting that more and more, and now with AI, and as amazing as all that is, truly, you have to still consider your sources and say, hey, this isn't the be all end all. Here it
Right.
is. Up, I have those symptoms. There it is. And a lot of times it's not that. So, how do you know? I guess to find the root cause, you have to understand if it's joint related. How many things do I do in life where I have that joint hurting me? Does that make sense? When I reach, when I grab, when I pull, when I do a push up, when I have a weight at arm's length away, and all those things hurt my shoulder. Well, guess what? You probably have a shoulder thing. But gosh, Brent, I kind of move. It kind of hurts sometimes. But then when I lay down and I lay on one side and my neck's, and I get this aching, I get aching at night. It's kind of curious. When I'm on the computer, it seems to hurt more than when I move. Huh. Is it a shoulder issue? It might not be. So, how do I answer that question? It's complicated because that's what I do every day is try and figure that stuff out.
And you're just chasing it via these manual tests and assessments and visualization. You're just chasing it up and down that chain of where
Yep.
it's of the connection points.
Yep. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
really trying to discern who's zooming who. I always use that phrase, like, where is it coming from? And that's a complicated thing, Lisa. And I know I keep saying that, but that's through all the tests and examinations. And then to jump way ahead, let's not get too hung up on diagnostic tests, meaning MRI. And, if something's really bad and into dysfunction and I can't move my arm and it's really weak and I have all these things going on and I've tried this, and this, yeah, we need to kind of look further and get an MRI. But so many times people are out getting MRIs and things, and then, that test comes back and it shows something in the shoulder. Aha, there it
That's
is.
it.
See, I told you. And it's like, well, guess what? If we went out and grabbed 10, 15 people off the street that don't have any shoulder pain and give them MRIs, of those 15 people, maybe half of them have objective findings on exam and MRI that shows someone with their shoulder, they have no pain.
Right.
So does that mean they have dysfunction? Maybe not. They may be fully functional. So we have to be careful with that too. So The goal is always find the objective cause. So if someone is curious about their symptoms, one, be relentless in trying to find the objective cause. Treating symptoms, sometimes we treat symptoms and we get lucky
Yep.
enough where things get better by treating symptoms, but it's going to come back. It will come back. So be relentless in the pursuit of trying to find the root cause. How do you do that? Ask a lot of questions. Reach out to the people around you that maybe have had some similar symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
but watch out, apples and apples, oranges to apples. You got to be careful in what you're comparing to. Consider your sources. And then lastly, find a professional that's going to truly help you identify the
Yeah.
root cause and then go from there.
Which is so important. I feel like so often we treat the symptom and we don't, because our human nature is, especially as athletes, we want it to be fixed fast, right? We don't want to take the time to recover or sometimes even to troubleshoot what's going on. But the side effect of that is that it just keeps coming back because we haven't actually solved the real problem.
That's right. I call it the Burger King fix. I want it now and I want it my way. And I get that. We get that, in kind of working in a clinic that we see a lot of athletes like yourself and people that are incredibly motivated. And sometimes that's their livelihood. My body, my arm is my
Yep.
livelihood. That's like, whoa, well, we're not going to treat that person any differently than Mrs. Johnson, who just wants to walk around Green Lake. We're going to treat her the
Yeah.
same way. But the difference of that is sometimes like, I got to go, but we got to get it right too. And
Yes.
to get it right, we've got to get into the root cause, like you said, and figure it out. So it's hard to sometimes find the root cause on our own. We need our community around us to figure it out. But understand that sometimes what seems to be an issue in a certain part of your body may not
Right.
be that at all.
So true. Awesome. So the next question, this is a good one too. Pain versus soreness. As I work with athletes, I'll often be like, I'm really sore from whatever. And it's important to understand if that's just post-workout muscle soreness or if there's really something that's actually going wrong. How do you make that assessment as a professional?
These are all
I
from your
love it.
athletes. You've got some great folks you're working with.
So
Man,
true.
this is awesome. So, first, pain is not always a red flag. This is a day-long conversation. Pain always should be a yellow light. Doesn't always have to be a red light, but it should be a yellow light, meaning, what is that? And then differentiating between pain and soreness. Now, I'll hear all day long patients come in, I have a really high pain tolerance. Well, the people that say that, usually it's the opposite, by the way.
Really?
Oh, yeah, I have a really high pain tolerance. And then, anyway, I won't get into that. But when they say that, it's like, yeah, probably not. The no pain, no gain talk.
Oh, yes. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Whoever said that just ruined generations of
Yeah.
athletes.
That's a thing, but that's not a thing. So please, everyone that's listening, watching, no pain, no gain. Again, yellow light, not red light, or no, pain is weakness leaving the body. No, pain is telling us something is happening that's stressing our system
Yep.
somehow, some way. So at least it's like ears and eyes are up. What's happening? So pain, your pain, Lisa, my pain may be different. My pain may be here, and you're like, dude, I feel that every single time I go climb. You're such a wimp, Brent. And so my pain may be here, yours is here. And then soreness. What is soreness? Well, sometimes we get those
Yes.
mixed up. Pain is something so concerning where, okay, this is at least enough of a yellow flag to a red light. Pain where it is altering motion, restricting mobility. I mean, like, ow, unrelenting, wakes me up, which is a whole nother ball game and sometimes a total red flag. No matter what I do, it doesn't go away. It is constant. It affects what I do. That is a timeout always to say, hey, doc, hey, Brent, physical, hey, can you check this out? This thing is owning me. It owns me. You've got to shut it down, and trying to just throw a Band-Aid on it and doing all the things that we know to do or what Dr. Google says or whatever, it might help for a day, but if it keeps coming back, and keeps coming back and is unrelenting and it's not changing, you've got to shut it down and you've got to get it checked out. So pain, if it's affecting all those things and going through your checklist, stop and assess. Soreness, the 24-hour rule. Bingo. Hey, I went out, I had an amazing workout. The next day I got up, ooh, stiff. My hips are stiff, my back, But I got up, kind of moved my thing, took a shower, had my coffee, went out for a nice little jog, got on the Peloton, whatever. Wow, I feel better. Bing, check, proceed as planned.
Just soreness.
Soreness, muscle soreness, even joints. Joints be sore or stiff? Yes. If I got up and I moved and I did my thing and I did some stretches, or I went for a walk, or I went for a swim, and things resolved, we're okay. But if that soreness in my glute, in my knee stayed on, and no matter what I tried to do, it didn't tamp down and it stayed here or even got a little bit worse, my eyes and ears are peeled saying, okay, maybe we tweak something. So that soreness now stayed the same and it's not getting better. We should check that out. Is it nasty pain? Maybe not, but it's just kind of enough where it's on my mind and it's not going away. Well, guess what? Don't ignore that. If you've done all the things that you know to do, and you ask around and your buddies, and again, be careful of your sources, but if you've done everything you know to do, then get that checked out for sure. So it's the 24-hour rule. If you wake up with soreness and or pain, and that goes away with the things you know to do within that day or the next day, proceed. If it doesn't or gets worse, time out,
Talk
seek
to
some help.
somebody. Yeah. I also think that pain, that delay onset muscle soreness has become like, if we don't have it, we feel like we haven't worked out hard enough. And so this circles back to the no pain, no gain principle or idea. I find some people push so hard, or if they don't have some pain or soreness post workout, they feel like they haven't done enough. And so a big part of what I do as a coach is teaching people that that's not the case, that progress comes in little increments, being consistent over time, and you don't have to wreck your body to achieve those things.
Man, I love what you just said. And as a coach and working with athletes out there, it is so critical. And there are certain mindsets out there that, I have a couple patients. That's how, if they aren't literally on their hands and knees.
Same.
Right?
Didn't count. I wasn't have done anything.
Yeah. It's like, this was a waste of time and is so far from the truth. But you're crushing yourself. And that's a whole nother conversation. And there are so many times the phrase less is more.
Absolutely.
Less is more, not more is more. Yeah, more is more of everything, right?
It doesn't mean it's good or warranted.
More is more. Take your pick. But so sometimes, that less is more in the dosing and that part of this whole other conversation as far as what we're doing for recovery and how that is going to get you a heck of a lot farther down the road than trying to push.
Yeah, that recovery, as you were talking, I was thinking about recovery. And I've had to learn this as well. I used to think like, I don't need a recovery day. I feel totally fine. I'm just going to keep going. Invariably have a few athletes in that category at any one time who it's so much harder for me to get them to take a day off than it is for me to get them to do anything else in terms of training or physical activity. And we come back we're more resilient when we give our bodies a chance to recover. And then we come back stronger and usually psychologically more ready to train and work out and push hard when we've given our bodies and minds a break.
And the more intense, and I know, it's still in the same realm of what we're talking about, Lisa, is the more intense, and I don't need to talk to you, I'm not trying to preach at all, but the more intense your activity and exercise has been, the more you need to consider your rest time. There are graphs of just showing, X amount of exertion equals X amount of rest and recovery. To think that, you just pounded it, you just rocked it, and then the next day you're going to go out and exert again. That, again, I'll just give you my business card right now and say, you're going to come see me tomorrow night because you're playing with fire. Sometimes we get lucky enough, and yeah, the whole thing with intensity of training and preparing, all those things, I get that, prepare to play, but so many times we're not taking enough time to recover. And that's a whole nother bucket of what we do
Yep.
to recover, where that's where injury occurs. We're out there, we're fatigued, our body's like, I'm smoked, but now
Yep.
you're trying to push me farther.
And the other thing that happens is when you push past that point, you're not getting everything you could out of that second or third workout because your body's not prepared to push that hard. So you're wasting a little bit of time even training that day. You'd be much better served and getting closer to your goals if you took a rest day or had an active recovery day instead of pushing harder.
And an active recovery day, Lisa, you know that doesn't mean, okay, no, you just said it, active recovery. So maybe it's a brisk walk.
Right.
Maybe it's a light shakeout, on the Peloton, or, I'm a runner.
Swim.
Yeah, a swim, a light shakeout, a 1.5 mile jog, active recovery, and then come in and foam roll and some stretching and your hydration, protein, blah, 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 blah. The stuff, right?
So many things.
Yes.
So many things.
Yes.
Okay, the next question actually just came from an athlete yesterday, and there's sort of two. She had a specific question. She's trained to climb Rainier, so she's doing a lot of hiking, and she's been having piriformis soreness. And so some good stretches for that. But then the other question, which is a more universal one, is heat or ice. And I've heard so many theories about you should do one or the other. You should do them in combination for this duration. So let's talk about that sort of piriformis in general, especially with uphill athletes, because I feel like that's a very common, like I've had a strain of my piriformis. It's a very common muscle that gets taxed and worked a lot. But then heat or ice, what do you say, Brent?
All right. Oh boy. So if I have a pain in my butt, Lisa, all right. So piriformis, it's an external rotator of the hip. It's often described, piriformis syndrome. I have this symptom here in my gluteal region and it comes on with X, Y, and Z. Now, first of all, let's make sure it's truly that. How do you know? Well, if you think you have that, again, it could be other things. This is where, is that where it is? Is that the source? And if it is, there are other reasons why it got there in the first place. You just didn't automatically just sprain or strain the piriformis. That could be your SI joint. It could be referred pain from your lumbar spine. It could be something that's starting to show up with a leg length discrepancy, be it structural or functional. It could be weakness that then it truly did get strained. So truly, is it a piriformis syndrome, yes or no? Well, then that dictates, should I be stretching it or not? And to what degree and how acute is this? What's the symptomology? What are you feeling? Is it point specific buttock pain? Does it spread? Does it shoot down my leg? Well, that's something else. Maybe. Yeah. Do I have lateral hip pain where it inserts into the posterior aspect of the greater trochanter? And so does it hurt when I poke on it? Do I hurt other areas? The first thing I'm going to tell your athlete is don't be quick to stretch it. And I say that because anytime a tissue is strained or sprained, the thing that if it's truly that tissue and we are sitting here trying to stretch a restricted or a tight tissue that is that way for a reason, that is sometimes the last thing or the worst thing you could do for it. So the first thing is, okay, how about we try some things to inhibit the spasm or the tension or the tightness by either some foam rolling, some trigger point release with either a tennis ball or lacrosse ball, not to jam it, but to get in there and just manipulate the tissue, kind of leaning up against the wall, in your buttock, kind of a little direct pressure. So a little trigger point release, which is inhibitory to the receptors that are telling that tissue to stay tight. Right. So it helps to turn the volume knob down. Other things like some mobility exercise, like some hip cars, some hip swings, laterally, fore and aft, laying on your back, knees side to side, 90-90, some active pigeon stretching, pigeon pose, but active, not static. So And if those things make it feel better, I would side to do things on more of a mobility, soft tissue mobility, mobilization, active range of motion thing versus static stretching. And then just that manual mobilization or hands-on or massage. That's what I would do first versus going right to a stretch, and then ice versus heat. Ice is, you're never going to go wrong with icing anything unless you have some, like Raynaud's syndrome but are you going to be helped by ice at a certain phase versus heat? So I would have to say, it's always good practice. And there are some that might even argue with me here. I think it's always good practice as far as just from an injury standpoint. If you have sprained, strained something, and you don't really quite know what you did yet because you haven't seen someone like myself or a physician comparing us as equals, we're not, but you haven't gone to the doc for an x-ray or an MRI, whatever has happened, icing in the first 24 hours of that injury or strain is a good idea because you don't necessarily know what it was or is yet.
Okay. And you're reducing inflammation during that 24-hour period.
Yeah, and at least if it looks like something where it's notably swollen, you have a fusion, you have a joint that is expanding, it's painful because of all those reasons. So even for pain mitigation, right, icing with compression, right, to help with the return of that edema into the lymph systems to help get the edema to circulate, right, and resolve in that manner too. Elevation. And I'm talking in the first, 24, maybe 48 hours. But then, so here's my take on where we shift. Then your body does an amazing job at trying to heal itself. An amazing job if we allow it. So what can we do to coax it, Lisa? Well, what we do is we add heat to the mix here to bring blood flow into the area, yes, to help the body's trying to heal itself. So let's do that by bringing more blood flow, nutrition into that area to really try and allow the body to heal itself. Icing inhibits that. It slows it down. While the body's like, let's go, let's heal this thing. The ice is like, no, let's not do that. Let's slow that down. No, that gets in the way. So that's where I'm like, Lisa, you know what the best thing for you to do today would be get into the hot tub for 15 minutes or the sauna.
Yeah, I love that.
Hydrating, heat, Epsom salt bath, infrared light, heat, 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 go, go, go. 1 to 2 times a day as needed. That's my vote right there. Contrast bath. I know that's, kind of contrasting ice, heat, ice, heat. It's a little kind of old school.
Really?
As far as just, that concept's been around for a long time. And I'm not poo-pooing it at all. I can see how that could, they call it, kind of the pump, right?
Yep.
Open up, vasodilation, vasoconstriction, vasodilation, vasoconstriction. Well, I think the best thing you could do would be heat and then some, pain-free mobilization movement and then heat again. So ice early on, especially if you don't know what has happened, pain mitigation, that's a biggie in the first 24 to 48 hours. And then I'm looking to somehow, some way heat or increase temperature in that area and blood flow to improve the healing.
Perfect.
Yes.
I love that. It's a quick, easy thing to remember, given like within the first 24 hours, especially if you're not sure the cause, ice it. And then after that, heat and do things to like movement, do things to promote healing of that particular area.
Movement, elevation with movement, compression sleep, ace wrap, all those things are great.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, here's a specific question. So this athlete had ACL surgery in their left knee over 10 years ago, and that surgery used part of their hamstring. Oh, yeah. So since then, their left hamstring has never quite regained the same amount of strength as their right. And they notice that imbalance when they're like hiking, stepping over big rocks. The question is, what could be the cause of that imbalance? Is it overcompensation or right foot pain due to overuse? And how can they strengthen that weaker hamstring? And is it ever possible to actually rematch the strength from that leg that had the surgery?
Yeah, great question. This is something that I, see every day. This is a conversation I have all the time, compensations. And unfortunately, what happens, and it's because our insurance doesn't pay to see someone through, so they get cut off and they can't afford to continue coming into PT, so they're done. They're functional enough to walk around Green Lake. I know, why am I fascinated with Green Lake? I don't know. I don't even live there anymore, but I used to. Okay, so I'm able to walk around Green Lake, but you know what? I haven't tried hiking yet. Why? Because I didn't complete my rehab. And
Right.
that's not maybe their fault. Or maybe they got just functional enough, Lisa, where I'm fine, but they're not fine. And what is it that they ultimately want to do? Well, we didn't get there. So maybe that imbalance happened for all kinds of different reasons, or their therapy wasn't done in with a functional approach. It was just, some traditional exercises that kind of help, but really, did they really tax themselves and load themselves up, really push them when appropriate in their stage of healing to really gain as much symmetry as they could have? So that's a whole bucket.
The imbalance is not necessarily caused by the surgery. It's
Right.
just something happened post-surgery that led to that
Right.
situation.
And then, so here's the thing, then as someone is going through their rehab, it's my job to start looking at, after they get a certain functionality and they're moving and their gait's normalized, then it's my job to start looking at, hey, are there other things that are happening with that individual that's creating more challenge for them to recruit their left hamstring
Mm,
strength, because they have a leg length discrepancy, or they have a left foot that's severely overpronating, that's throwing their knee in, that's not letting them
yep.
stabilize their limb appropriately when we're starting single leg loading and doing Bulgarian split squats or lunges or whatever, right? So there could be things that are getting in the way of allowing that patient to gain the strength that they could. Here's your athlete now that has this imbalance. And yes, could it be that my left hamstring weakness, for whatever reason it is there, or maybe there's some inhibition from the lumbar spine that is
Right.
not allowing that hamstring to fire the way it needs to fire? And Brent, I've been trying, but it's not firing because something is inhibiting it from firing the way it's supposed to fire. We need to figure that out. But regardless, I have this weakness that now is creating more overload onto my right side because I'm not thinking about this, but when I'm hiking, I don't depend on my left side proprioceptively. So I'm going to start overloading my right side. And now I'm overloading. Now I have right-sided Achilles tendonitis because I can't depend on my left leg to hold me up in certain positions. I start getting back pain because I can't extend my hip as well as I could on the left because that proximal hamstring is kind of shut down. So symptoms left side or right side from compensation for, again, whatever reason. So one, is there an inhibition? Is there something getting in the way of allowing your athlete to fire the hamstring? Or is it simply, I just didn't do enough to get the strength back? So if that's the case, we want to be careful that we're just not diving into a bunch of stuff on YouTube. As well intentioned as someone may be, again, we just need to make sure that those other things aren't happening. And if it's just a matter of strength, we need to have a good blend of both open and closed chain strengthening for that. And it's not so much just let's make sure that we're isolating the hamstring, but let's do a good job making sure that we're getting good eccentric strength with either Nordic hamstring curl, RDLs, squat lunge function, hamstring curls, open chain. We still need open chain work and load, step ups, which is a blended, you're going to get
Yeah, my
glutes
favorite.
and quad, and depending on the bias of your trunk over the hip and the plane of motion, you're going to work your hip, you're going to work your proximal hamstring differently. Bridges on a Swiss ball and doing leg curls. So a bridge with a leg curl, kind of pulling the ball to your butt up there, double leg, single leg, bridges on sliders, little
Ooh,
furniture
those are
skills,
good. Those are good.
and even bridges on a foam roll, pulling the foam roll to you. Those are all nasty. Those are great. So a good blend of open and closed chain hamstring strengthening is
Yep.
really important. And that's what I would do. But first, is there something impeding your athlete's ability to fire her hamstrings
That
the way
hamstring.
they should?
So it's really a matter of having someone take a look at it and make that assessment. And so then you can build a treatment plan and strategy based on what's really happening
Yeah.
with your body.
And I get it. And, it's like, well, I don't have time. Well, guess what? You don't have time being injured either. So let's just spend, and it doesn't mean, oh, you got to go into PT now twice a week for the next, no, it's like get it assessed to make sure,
Yeah.
this is just a strengthening thing. And here you go. Here's some things to go look at. And then let's meet again in a month. Let's reevaluate your strength. Here's some videos. Here's a layout of everything I want you to do over the next 4 weeks. And then I can check in with you at any time during these next 4 weeks. And let's rock and roll.
I just love the holistic approach to things. And I find that not everybody takes the time to do that. And like we said earlier, then you're just band-aiding things and it keeps coming back and you're not actually making progress or fixing anything. The next question is about tight hips. What are the consequences of tight hips over time? And what are the best exercises to first loosen, increase mobility, and then strengthen hips for athletes?
Why are my hips tight? Again, this is kind of coming off of so many questions already today. What's the root cause? Why are my hips tight? There's a reason. That's a symptom of something. Well, just because I, run hills twice a week and I never stretch or, okay. Is it that, hey, my hips are always tight. I'm always trying to stretch and nothing changes. Well, guess what? It's not a stretching issue. Is that right? It's not a stretching issue.
Right.
There's something else going on. It could be I have a facilitated segment. I have something in my lumbar spine. I have something going on that's kind of funky in my hip joint, my pubic symphysis, past trauma from a fall. Again, something facilitating the hip tightness. Or lastly, sometimes, and this is why we have to be careful on what we're doing, because the knee jerk is tightness equals, stretch it. No,
Right.
sometimes tightness is because of weakness. Sometimes that tightness is there because, my shoulder, the back of my shoulder is always tight. So I'm sitting here trying to do posterior rotator cuff stretch. I'm trying to stretch my piriformis over and over again, and it's not working. Well, guess what? That's not it.
Problem.
It's tight because of a certain functional weakness or overload or compensation that's there from some imbalance coming from either your structure or weakness on the other side that's overloading this, or your foot, or a scoliotic curve in your back.
So many things.
Right? I mean, and not trying to get complicated,
No, it
but
could
the
be so
body
many
is
things.
amazing. And the body's whole job in life is to truly get myself down the road as efficiently as I can without deviating much from the pull of gravity. So that equals compensations for me to do that. So maybe I'm tight because I have anteverted hips, which is a structural manifestation of an increase in internal rotation position of my hips. So my external rotators are always getting pulled and on stretch when I walk, and that's why they're tight, because they're always getting pulled in. And on top of that, my feet are overpronating. And so now I have double, and I'm sitting here trying to stretch my hips, and that's not working. We've got to figure it out. We've got to get stronger in the hips. We've got to stop the stretching, stop it. Maybe some mobilization with foam roll, but stop that. We've got to strengthen. We've got to get stronger. And all of a sudden, oh man, my hips aren't as tight. Yeah, because they're not being traumatized during the day with what I do. So to answer your athlete's questions, we have to be careful that, first of all, should I even be stretching? And my vote would be, let's say it is kind of a mobility issue. Just like we talked about earlier today, my vote would first be, let's not spend time trying to stretch. Let's spend time trying to mobilize by foam rolling, lacrosse ball, tennis ball, getting in there, working, finding any trigger points, then spending time doing some hip swings if that feels okay and I don't have any impeded or restricted motion. Ow, when I swing my leg out there, that pinches my hip. Ow, that
Yeah.
hurts. Okay, no. But if I can do that and do my lateral hip swings, my 4.5 hip swings, cars, open the gate, close
Mhm.
the gate, those things, that's what I want. Back, back and forth, kind of what we call a hook lying knee rocking, those kinds of things. And then if that's helpful, okay, amen. Active, active, active stretching versus static. And then lastly, glute strengthening. Oh man, that's a can of everything.
It is like that's a challenge for me firing my glute. It's just for whatever reason my physiology doesn't naturally want to do that.
So, Lisa, if you do like a right anterior step up with a knee drive, like
Yep.
boom, and then drive the other
Yep.
knee,
Yep.
you don't feel that.
No.
Wow.
So I have to very consciously, I normally do it when I'm on the treadmill because it's too hard for me to do when I'm running outside or hiking. I will think about firing that glute each side every time I take a step. I don't know what other advice do you have for us? Oh, don't fire our glutes.
So, if I were seeing you today, what I would be doing is really picking apart, well, one, just seeing if there's anything that could be curious as to why you're not able to. But it might be that we just haven't found one or two or three or four exercises that are very specific for you in very specific planes of motion and understanding what the glutes really need to do in life and how they truly respond and activate in ways to control pelvic and femoral
Yep.
motion and knee action, and finding ways to say, aha, yep, Brent, I felt that. That's the key. So single leg, double leg things, it might be that we're not strong enough to support a single leg movement. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to go to double leg
Mm-hmm.
and really get into finding in different planes of movement, different foot positions, different elevations, different variants in that regard. Yeah, and if we could find 3 to 5 exercises that fire your glutes, that's key.
So these are more general questions. And going back again to foot problems, I see a lot of athletes with foot problems. What are the most effective strategies to prevent injuries like plantar fasciitis and also meniscus tears?
We talked about, so the importance of shoes is to be, what I'm not saying is, hey, to prevent plantar fasciitis, we need to be in shoes. Didn't say that. Saying that for us to be out there doing active things, our shoe wear needs to be solid per my foot action and my foot compensation. So that's number one. And not because I need my foot in a crutch of a situation. I need my foot in an environment that's helping it do what it's supposed to do in an efficient manner. Inefficiencies create stress and strain and create symptoms like plantar fasciitis. So that's number one. Number two, we need to do things to strengthen our foot and ankle, often kind of overlooked. So doing things barefoot. Well, let's be careful. So when I say that, I'm not talking about walking around the house, but I am talking about doing things methodically as far as truly doing exercises to strengthen the intrinsics of the foot, the extrinsics of the ankle. So things like I call toe yoga, toe splaying, big toes up, little toes out, heel raises, really making sure that we're on equally loaded through all 5 toes, getting up on to your toes and back down. Not so much to fire the gastrocnemius and soleus, but to fire the intrinsics of the foot and the extrinsics of the ankle. Toe walks, walking forward, walking
Ooh.
backward, walking side to side, doing a modified squat up on toes, doing a modified stagger stance lunge on toe,
Those are
being
good.
in that position, holding that position, and then doing heel raises in that position, doing a wide base squat with up and down on your toes. So doing heel raises in a squatted position, leaning up against the wall in a wall sit position, doing heel raises, being in a doorway, doing double leg heel raises, and then alternating side to
Mm.
side
Mm-hmm.
isometric holds, going up with 2, down with 1, and an eccentric heel
Yep.
raise. balance, single leg balance. Think about your foot as a tripod, big toe, little toe, heel, foot down on the ground, balance on Airex foam pad, flat side of a Bosu ball. Much better than the rounded side. I don't like that. It's too abrupt. But the flat side, the company says don't do that, but I do that every day. So challenging dynamic balance. That's another. So very good stuff to bolster the intrinsic strength and the extrinsic strength of the foot and ankle to help with plantar fasciitis, gastroc and soleus flexibility, mobility to improve that sagittal plane mobility of the ankle so that my lower leg's getting over my foot well. When those tissues are tight, then I shortchange and that puts more load on the foot because I'm not getting up and over the foot as efficiently as I could. Making sure that the foot's doing a good job shock absorbing, supporting, and propelling by all those things.
Right.
Making sure that we're strong, making sure we have good mobility. And lastly, just someone that spends a lot of time on their feet, just doing like little kind of rolling out your arches or taking a massage gun to the arch, right? Rolling out your arches with a spiky ball.
I'm doing that right now. I have those under my desk. I leave them under my desk. And then when I'm in meetings, that's what I do.
See, there you go. And not crushing it, but stay in the meat of the arch. Don't get up into the metatarsal heads or don't get into the heel. Stay in the meat and work that. Don't crush it, but spend 5 minutes as needed or after a big workout. Get in there and work those tissues. That's a great way to mitigate plantar fasciitis. Meniscus, there's really no prevention of meniscal tears other than just really making sure. I mean, it can be totally freak and it can also be degenerative over time, sometimes just bad luck, but other times it's because that we have a malalignment that we've been talking about a lot today for whatever reason, be it structural or be it compensatory for muscle weakness. So just, one, if I'm starting to feel kind of, I've got joint line pain in my knee. I have things, I'm getting a clicking or a locking mechanism of my knee. Okay, we got to be careful about that and then immediately take impact out of that system. So, because that, if I'm starting to feel kind of a bite in my knee, sharpness, a sharp quality, some swelling that's associated with that, sometimes that's indicative of something internal going on in the knee itself. So anything that's going to create, increased loads, that impact, you got to remove that. Also, any aggressive pivoting movements. Like, hey, I'm a tennis player. Let's just watch and just beware, right? Yellow light, not maybe red light. But if you are having knee pain and you are getting clicking that is painful or a locking mechanism that disrupts the flow and the mechanics of your knee, get that checked out for sure. And then just making sure we have a nice, robust, functional strengthening program that's good, comprehensive strength. The stronger the limbs are, the hips, the quad hamstring ratio, lower leg stability, lower leg strength, the better your knees are always going to be. And lastly, the knee is just a train on a track. So you can't just look at the knee and go, aha, the knee, the knee, the knee. No, the knee just depends on the hip and the foot to do its work. So if we're concentrating on the knee, we're missing the boat. You got to look at the entire chain of events and how it all moves together. Because if we're just focusing on the knee, we're off track right from the beginning.
It's all connected. I've said that many times. I'm always amazed at how connected things are. Okay, last one. I know we have a few more, but I think that we've covered a lot of ground today. And so this is a good, general question. What are mistakes you see, especially endurance athletes make when they're trying to manage an injury and continue training because they have a climb coming up and they can't afford to just totally stop everything?
Endurance athletes, first of all, there's a certain mentality right here that is just let's frickin' go, right? It's like, and so one is just working with the mentality of how can you speak to that athlete to get them to pull back enough to allow their body to recover or heal. And again, depending on the severity of the tweak or the injury. And am I injured or am I just
Yeah.
sore? So figuring that out, is this a red light or a yellow light, or we're still green, but we need a day? Number two is so identifying what, and then two, pulling back doesn't mean necessarily you've got to couch it. So it's not like, okay, you need a rest day. Well, maybe a rest day is you're just going to get out on a nice long walk today. We're not pounding. We're not hitting hills. We're not doing sprints on the bike, right? We're not doing that today. But we're going to move and we're going to actively recover. I think it's like you're going to do more to put yourself back
Yeah.
5 or 10
Yeah.
notches by trying to pound it and I see this in, my son was a competitive runner and ran a Division 1 school, and being around that environment
Oh,
and
yeah.
just seeing, his training partners and stuff, and these guys are like, I can't take a day off. It's like, oh my gosh. And how much did they gain by on day 7 pushing it on that 10-mile run? How much did they really gain from that?
Right.
Versus if they wouldn't have done that, maybe hit the bike, hit the pool, I don't know, right? And what they would have gained from that versus what they think they gained from going out there and doing 10. So it's what you do, it's how you actively recover, it's giving you the time. Also, how much sleep are you getting?
What's
How
your
much,
nutrition like?
this is
Yeah.
huge. How much sleep are you getting? How much true, deep sleep are you getting? Your nutrition, your hydration, the active recovery stuff. What are you doing, with soft tissue? What
Mm.
are you doing with your protein intake? So protein synthesis. I'm not a nutritionist, but just know enough, little things that make a difference as far as tissue repair and tissue recovery. That's an entirely different conversation. But your protein intake and what level of an athlete you are, these are
Mhm.
huge things. But man, the number one recovery tool on the planet is your sleep.
Yes.
It is your sleep.
Yes. Thank
And
you for saying that.
yeah, if you are not getting that, we can be doing all the supplementation, all the
Right.
stuff. It doesn't frickin' matter. You've got to get your sleep. Yes.
Yes.
So did I answer your
You
question?
totally did, and reinforce several things that I know are important to athletes, and that I hear that of conversations I have with athletes regularly, and myself especially, about just taking a break and getting enough sleep. It's so, so important to everything we do. Everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Number one.
Well, thank you, Brent. This has been really fun and educational for me, and I'm sure for everyone listening as well. So I appreciate you sharing your knowledge and for all the ways that you support this community.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
We'll link your website in the show notes. And is there anything else you want to share or make sure we talk about?
Listen to your body. Your body is an amazing, amazing apparatus, and our bodies are designed to heal themselves. Give your body the opportunity to heal itself. Mother Nature, you can't. So, as far as, hey, finding the elixir of the perfect supplements, they're not out there. Good food, non processed food, food is medicine,
Uh-huh.
your sleep. There's really no magic. It's just putting it together in the right framework and phase, listening to your body. Don't push through pain. Don't push through pain. Soreness is one thing, but something that is altering how you move and altering your stride, your gait, your foot placement, the way you reach and out. There's a reason that's happening.
Right.
Ignore that. Reach out to your community, ask questions, be a sponge, and just make the right choice for you. Because what's going on for Sally down the road, that's Sally,
Right.
right? And that's her experience. Yeah, you do you. Figure it out for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yep. And we're here to help.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Brent. A huge thank you to Brent for sharing his knowledge today. I'm always learn something or see something in a different light when I speak with him. And I hope you all feel the same after listening to this episode today. I appreciate everything Brent does as well to support this community. And if you're in the Seattle area and you're looking for a physical therapist who really understands the demands of endurance and mountain sports, I can't recommend him enough. We'll have a link to his clinic in the show notes. And if you've got a question that you'd love answered by Brent or another guest in an upcoming episode, I'd love to hear that as well. You can submit a question using a form that we'll link in the show notes. And if today's episode helped you to think differently about how your body moves or gave you a new approach to your training or your recovery, share it with a friend and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Until then, train smart, climb prepared, and keep finding your elevation. Thanks, everybody.